Hey lovelies, Lisa here, and apologies for my state of disarray. I sort of never changed out of my running gear when I came back from my run earlier this evening, but it is what it is. So I wanted to talk with you guys a little bit about community. I've been thinking a lot about community, about, my own relationship to the world of mutuality, of exchange and interchange, and the ways in which our hearts and our feelings are not just our own, the ways in which we are caught up in networks and relationships and complex dynamics, and, the ways in which the world of the cups expresses that fluidity of the human soul. That we may seem to have these individual bodies and we may seem to have individual hearts and minds, but in fact, like water, we're always fluidly running into each other. That doesn't quite sound right, but hopefully you know what I mean. And one of the reasons I've been thinking a lot about this is because my card of the month for April was the 5 of Cups, and my card of the month for May was the 3 of Cups. So, in thinking about the particular sense of sorrow and loss that the 5 of Cups represents, I've been thinking about how sorrow and loss, while they feel like personal setbacks, there's a way in which the sorrows that individuals experience is really something that we all partake in, that no individual person's pain is just their pain. And, as a Buddhist, when I think about suffering, suffering isn't just something that an individual undergoes because, they've had rough luck. Suffering is kind of the nature of life in its incredible entanglement and intertwining. And the 3 of Cups, which is, about celebration, about coming together, about friendship, about that particular sense of cheer and joy. If you think about the Waite-Smith imagery of the sort of 3 graces, like the figure of the 3 women together, intertwined in a circle, that way in which joy, which may feel like it's my personal possession, like my happiness, it's actually a quality that arises in community. I mean, we are fundamentally social beings, and life is fundamentally intertwined for all beings. So I've been thinking a lot about that quality of community. And as I enter into my Tower month, one of the things that I'm realizing is the way in which the world of this tree is so singular and upright and individuated, and just trying to understand how, and I'm thinking this through in part my work in the hospital and some work that I did this past week, working with a family that was dealing with an incredible trauma. The family was really big, really complex family dynamics, and like every family, lots of dysfunction, lots of love, lots of support and solidity, but also just, families are families. And thinking about the way in which the patient at the center of the tragedy, this individual, how the calamity that had befallen them, how that was held by the whole family. The trauma belonged to everyone. So I'm just thinking about the Tower and the way in which, tragedy, the tragedy that befalls me befalls everyone whose life I touch and whose life touches mine. So how do we make sense of these community interconnections? We live in a culture and a time that so elevates the understanding of the individual. But if we know anything from the pointy suits, from the swords, and from the wands, we know that the world of the individual can be a really impoverished world, a really lonely and isolated world. And this brings me back to some further work with the Five of Cups, my April card, which came up this past week as I was working with this family. And that was in, I was working with calibrating my playing cards, and I kept getting hearts. And I kept getting, in fact, several times the Five of Hearts, which in the playing card deck is the card that corresponds with the Five of Cups. So I kept getting the Five of Cups and Five of Hearts. And yeah, the arrangement of this five figure, with the way in which the central pip, the thing that turns it from the four-corner stability, the rectangular stability of the four, into this figure of the five, right? That added fifth element that turns it into the five. Like, you know, this guy in his or her kind of stuck in the middle, sort of isolated, trapped and alone. It just helped me see the ways in which the kind of pain and suffering and sorrow of a kind of Five of Cupsy world has something to do with the isolation of a central figure. What it means to be the individual in a sea of pain. I hope that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's all I got right now. The Five of Hearts, the individual, the tower that stands alone. That's what I'm thinking about this evening as I'm getting ready to hit the hay. Okay, I'll talk to you more tomorrow, I guess. As always, thank you for watching, and thank you for your practice.